good to see you today. As you can see, if you're watching this podcast, if you're watching the video, watching it on YouTube, I am in my pajamas. I don't have my hair done. I don't have my makeup on. I don't have jewelry on. I feel so strongly that I needed to pop on here and talk about this. And it's so beautiful how everything works out right yesterday. So at the time of this recording, today is September 11th, 9/11. And yesterday, Charlie Kirk was shot and killed in Utah, just 3 hours away in what is a very conservative, very peaceful place. And I want to do a disclaimer. I know absolutely zero about Charlie Kirk. I'd never heard of him until yesterday. I don't really know anything about other than just like very basic about who he is and what he does. I know that people are completely disheartened and absolutely torn apart that this happened to such a good conservative Christian man who is trying to do good and literally speaks about and teaches about doing things peacefully. Yesterday, there was also a small earthquake, a 4.1 earthquake in my little area out in eastern Utah, in Vernal. And it was the weirdest thing. I was on my floor, working on my floor on my yoga mat like I do often. I sometimes am sitting at my desk like a normal person, but most of the time, either walking on my walking pad like this, I'm on my floor stretching on my yoga mat while I'm working or working with clients. I'm outside in the hammock, I'm in the tub. Like I do life on my terms, and my body does not love just sitting at a desk. So I find ways to break it up and do things that feel good for me as I'm accomplishing the work that I feel so called to do. And I was sitting there on the floor and I felt this little like vroom, this little weird rumble. And our home is an older home. When we bought it, when we moved here to Vernal and we were looking for a home, our realtor was finally like, "Oh, you're not looking for a house, you're looking for a yard." And I was like, "Yes, I have 5 boys. I want them outside. We need a place with a good, mature yard with grass and trees and a big lot, a big space, and we need a decent house on it." So we're going to be up leveling here shortly, but our beautiful home, it's an older home. So my whole point of this is when someone's, when they come in and they slam the door, and the house kind of like does this little rattle thing, right? And for a second, I was like, oh, I thought it was just that, but nobody had slammed the door, and it was more of like from the bottom rather than on the walls. And I was like, what was that? And it was a few minutes later, I think I felt it a couple times, and then my husband came in and he was like, "Did you feel that?" And I was like, "Yeah, did you feel that?" It was almost like, did I make that up or did that actually happen? So we kind of had to like confirm with each other that I think that was an earthquake that we just felt. Plus the shooting in Colorado, which I don't know anything about. And then last weekend, at the time of this recording, last weekend, my hometown in northern Mexico, I grew up in an area that's known as the Mormon colonies in northern Mexico. And I'll go all into that another time. There was a flood. They've been in a drought for years. August is usually the rainy season, and they hadn't gotten more than a couple of inches. And all of a sudden, within less than a week's time, they got 11 inches. And there was a flash flood that started up in the mountains, came just flashing through. The water raised like 6 feet in 3 hours. There's a lot of people that live right along the river in poor, small, um, my brain's not even working to talk like, what am I politically correct? I'm not ever, I try to be politically correct, but small rundown homes, not rundown, but small, adobe homes and plaster homes that were right there along the riverbanks, completely wiped out, completely destroyed, mud up to almost like with just within a few feet of the ceiling, literally destroyed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people's homes. Only one man was killed, a gentleman that wasn't willing to leave his home. He was killed. People have lost everything, completely devastated. And then my son last night was like, "Mom, and our teacher was telling us about this lady that had moved over to the United States from the Ukraine, and she was on a train and she was stabbed to death and killed, and nobody even noticed until she was already been dead for several minutes, and so they couldn't even help her." And they were like, "Mom, what's going on?" And I get it. Like, there are a lot of crazy things happening in the world. We don't understand it all. We don't even know half of it here in the United States, right? We only see what's here and we hear about other things going on, but we very seldom actually feel and taste for our own selves that absolute devastation. And one of the first things that comes to mind for me, I've had several close friends and acquaintances that have lost loved ones the last several weeks, just seemingly out of the blue. And it was interesting. My husband, when all this was happening yesterday, my husband said, all right, girl, like what's happening astrologically that's causing all of this, right? And while there are different things happening astrologically, for example, right now we're in the middle of an eclipse portal, which means that there is going to be more growth and healing and alignment happening over this 2-week period. At the time when if you listen to this when it comes out, I believe that we're scheduled to come out on September 15th. We're halfway through that 2-week eclipse portal. Eclipse portals, you have the opportunity for 10 years of growth and advancement and alignment happening over a 2-week period. So a lot of things falling into place, shifting into place. And I was reminded yesterday in a conversation with a friend, alignment isn't always easy. It brings peace, it brings clarity over time, but the process of it is not always peaceful and is not always enjoyable and very seldom fun. And all of this to say that I want to remind you, as there is a million different things going on, and so much, people are always talking about how there's so much evil in the world and how the world's going to pot and how all this horrible things and people and stuff is happening. The truth of the matter is that there is equal and opposite in all things. This is Isaac Newton's third law of motion, that for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. So a couple things, I was looking up some information about this to get more clarity. The forces come in pairs, an interaction between two objects. Hold on to this for a second. I'm not going to go all scientific on you, I promise, but I just want to kind of bring this up. Forces are an interaction between two pairs. They have the same strength. They act in opposite directions. They act on different objects. They do not cancel each other out because they're acting on different options. And it happens at the same time. Now, let's go back. Those equal and opposite, if they come in pairs, what are the really, if you break it all down to it, what are the two main pairs in the universe? It is God's way and it is the adversary's way. It is evil and it is good. They have the same strength. Now that's kind of scary to think that the adversary, Satan, the devil, whatever you want to call him, has the same strength as God does. And I actually don't believe that. I believe that God is way more powerful, but the truth is that the adversary is very powerful and he acts with equal and opposite effort that God acts in. And the point that I want to make with all of this is that whenever there is something bad happening in the world, there has to be an equal and opposite of good that is happening. Do you realize that? So all these negative things that feel like they've been happening in our world over the last couple of days, weeks, months, years, right? Like if we really want to go into it, and how things feel like they're getting worse and worse and worse. The truth is that there has to be, and there is, an equal and opposite amount of good. More, as there are more and more people doing bad and being evil, there are more and more people doing good and choosing righteousness and choosing light. And I'm not talking in any way about any kind of religion. I am talking about being filled with light and being in alignment with God. That is light, that is righteousness, and that looks different for everybody. There are people who are doing as much good and bringing as much joy and as much light, and I dare say even more joy and good and light into the world than there are people who are doing bad and evil and hurtful things. Anytime there is sorrow or there is despair or there is sadness or grief, there is also an equal and opposite opportunity, whether for you or just someone else out there. The thing we have to remember is it doesn't always have to be you. You may be feeling grief and sadness and despair, that where you feel like your world is going to end. And there's someone out there in the world who is experiencing so much joy and gratitude and love and peace and prosperity. It sometimes is you to have that equal and opposites, but it just means there has to be an equal and opposite force in the world in general. Is this making sense to you? And my invitation for you is to focus on the good. Focus on the good. I love my example, the example of my sister Mackenzie. She's my assistant coach in my coaching business, and she has such a beautiful outlook on life. I'm going to have her on a podcast here sometime soon because she's absolutely wonderful. And in our family in particular, my parents living down there in the Mormon colonies in Mexico, right there in this town where fortunately they're high enough above the river, their property and their home is they weren't affected by the flooding. It got pretty close. It got like right up to the wall that surrounds their property. So that's crazy. And as they were filling us in and sending us the pictures and telling us about all the stuff that was happening and the devastation and the loss, my sister Mackenzie said, wow, this is going to be amazing to see how God works through this to bring blessings. Einstein taught us that the most important thing that you can decide, that you can choose, is if you live in a benevolent or a malevolent universe. A universe that is constantly, and a God that is constantly bringing you good and creating more joy and blessings in your life, or a universe and a God that is constantly trying to make your life harder and bring bad and awful and horrible things into your life. I choose a God, a universe who is so benevolent, so abundant, so generous that we can't even comprehend. And it's been so cool to see exactly that. There has been, at this point, last time I checked the GoFundMe account for the Mormon colonies, there had been over $55,000 that people had donated to help to rebuild those families that live in those small adobe plaster homes along the river. They're going to be blessed with the opportunity to build better homes in a better place. They're going to have clothes and appliances and furniture and all the things brought to them. They're going to end up better off than they were before, temporally. Also, the connection, the collaboration, the growth that is happening as a community and in the area in general, the people that are showing up to help and support, and the people that are giving their time, their energy, their resources, has been absolutely phenomenal. And my dad was saying, I was just talking to him yesterday, he was saying the abundance of love and support and the togetherness that the community is feeling right now, they've never had that before. That is how this works. There's going to be so much good that comes from everything that is happening. Look at, at the time of this recording, it's September 11th. We were devastated when 9/11 happened. It was scary, it was hard, it was uncertain. But look at all the growth that came from it. Look at the connection, look at the unity, the patriotism that came to our country. The days and months and weeks and years following. Has some of that fallen off? Have we forgotten some of that? Yeah, we have. That's who we are. I had a teacher in college once, a religion teacher, that taught me that the thing that God wants most of all is for us to remember God, to remember how blessed we are, to remember that people are more important than things. This is something I've taught my kids since they were little. People are more important than things. There has to be equal and opposites. So with everything that is happening in the world today and in our time and in our lives, and it's just going to get worse. The fact of the matter is, if you believe in Christ, if you believe in a second coming, the truth is that it's going to get worse before it gets better. There's going to be more and more bad and evil and destruction that is happening. And there has to be equal and opposite. So that means there's going to be more and more good, more people who are showing up and standing up and choosing light and choosing love and teaching about light and love. That is why I'm here. That is why I'm here, is to bring more light and love and joy into the world. That is why you here, if you are listening to this, you are called to this as well. So stand up, be you, be authentic, take the time to be in alignment. What are the things, if tomorrow was your last day, how would you spend your time? Who would you love? What would you do? What would you share? What would you forgive people for? How would you show more love? Do those things. And remember that what you focus on, you will find. So for me, that's one of the hardest things because I don't do news and all the things, when something big like this happens and suddenly my feed is completely inundated with people talking about the disaster or the assassination or whatever it is going on. And I get it. Not everybody wants to just like put blinders on and not focus on stuff like that. But my continual reminder and thought is like, oh, if we're focusing on whatever we focus on is what we're going to find. So as you are sharing, as you are consuming, if it's not helping you to get more and more into alignment, or helping someone else to get more into alignment, maybe reconsider how you're responding, what you're doing, how you're sharing, and reconsider, do I believe in a benevolent or a malevolent? Malevolent. Malevolent? I don't know what the word now. Universe. Do I believe that everything happens for my good? Do I have that faith? Do I have that trust? And if you don't already, I invite you to consider that and ponder on that and become aware of what it is that is holding you back from trusting more fully, from looking for the good, from being more of the good in your life. And the last piece that I want to share with you on this and bring in is, and there's like, again, equal and opposite in all things, right? Because it's like, what you focus on, you create more of. So focus on the good. And also, the truth of the matter is that true bliss, true joy comes from fully feeling your feelings. True bliss and true joy comes from fully feeling your feelings. So if you feel grief, feel the grief when it comes up. Feel it all. Let it consume your body. Let you drown yourself in your sorrows and in tears. Take whatever time you need to just cry or scream or hit a pillow or go for it, whatever it is that you need. Take the time to do that, to fully feel it in your body, because feelings buried alive never die. And if you don't fully feel them, they just sit and they fester until, like a volcano, they explode one day. If you will fully feel them, you will be able to fully heal them. And as I have leaned more fully into this idea that my true joy, my true bliss comes from fully feeling my feelings, then instead of trying to push things away or be like, oh no, but I'm going to focus on the positive, if I'm feeling frustrated about something, I will allow myself to feel frustrated and to dive into, why am I feeling frustrated? What is going on with this? What does it feel like in my body? Give it a color, give it a shape, give it a smell. We can go more fully into this another time, but fully feel it. I mean, that's how we go and watch movies, right? Because we want to feel the despair and the frustration of the heroine, being heartbroken or losing her love or this horrible accident. And we want to see what happens and what comes because of it. We want to feel that. So don't push it away when it happens to you. Allow yourself to fully feel it, to be in it and come through it. And know that as you feel this, on the other side is more joy and more expansion and more gratitude and more prosperity and abundance and love and peace and all the beautiful things than you can ever imagine. So focus ultimately on the positive, and in the process, allow yourself to feel those feelings along the way, because that will lead you to greater joy and happiness and peace in the long run. I hope this is all making sense. It's something that I feel so passionately about and that I love teaching about, and I love seeing in my family as I've implemented this and taught this to my children, to my clients. I love seeing the changes that it's made in their lives, and each one of us, one person at a time, choosing to trust, choosing to believe in a benevolent, magnanimous, abundant, prosperous, giving universe and God. That allows each of us to be in more light, and we get to be that opposite. We get to be the opposition of so much love and so much joy that comes into your life. I love you. I'm praying for you all. I'm praying for our country, for our world, and I'm praying that each one of us will choose greater alignment, greater peace, to be a peacemaker, to be a lover, not a fighter, and to focus on the truth and the joy that is always here for us. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. You know how this ends. And that's ultimately what it all comes down to, right? You know how this ends. You know who you are. You are a child, a son, a daughter of a God who is so glorious and loving and loves you more than you can possibly imagine. They win. God wins. Our Heavenly Father, our Heavenly Mother, our Savior Jesus Christ, they win in the end. We already know that. We have the playbook. we've done the, what's it called? The sneak peek. Oh man, I can't think of it. What is that called when you like skip to the end and then go back, right? Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. We win. God wins. So focus on that. Trust the process. You know how this ends. I love you. Bye. Mwah. Friends, I almost forgot to tell you that if you want to come and be around more people who are thinking this way, who are acting this way, who are focusing on the positive and growing and building their lives, especially you ladies out there, I would love to invite you to come to our September 25th Creating Her Empire event. It is a high tea experience at the Grand America in downtown Salt Lake City. Tickets will be linked below in the podcast and on all of our channels and social media. This is the place where we're going to be so high vibe and we're going to be focusing on the positive and we're going to be talking about exactly how to go about doing this. The principle of be, do, have, focusing on the good, raising your vibration, and then taking the actions that are required, not running around and hustle and overwhelm and like a chicken with your head cut off, right? But focusing on what are those specific inspired actions that we take to move us forward in this direction so that you can have the results in your life, so that you can feel more in alignment with who you are, with this light and truth and peace. So please come and join us September 25th at noon at the Grand America Hotel. Tickets are required to be purchased ahead of time, and they will be linked below and in our social media. Denisha Christensen on Facebook, and I am Denisha Christensen on Instagram. Come and join and be surrounded by women who are focusing on being the light and focusing on the positive. I'll see you there. Bye-bye.